You can't be well compensated for something that like anybody could do.
I never looked at it that way. That's 100%
Don't.
true.
Today I get to chat with Mr. Tate, Cutman from UFC, known for his handsomeness, big barrel chest, massive shoulders, and fixing people up between rounds when they're bleeding from their face and whatnot. And you also wrap the hands of the shows. You wrap the fighters' hands backstage before they put the gloves on and come out,
yeah? The most important part of the job actually is the hand wrap and what goes on backstage. So that's where a lot of the focus of the job is. You know, like it's fun to be in front of the camera in the cage, but a lot of the work is done in the back where you're wrapping the guys' hands, you're getting them ready, you're making sure they have everything they need so they can go out and perform, you know, and that's what we do. There's a lot that goes into it, from like wrapping the hands, getting the gloves on. You have people getting the equipment team, getting the outfits correct, the cups and all that stuff, the mouthpieces, and then, you know.
You don't help put the cups on, do you? It seems like it'd probably be somebody else's job.
I mean, yeah, that is somebody's job, but, you know, even down to the red and blue tape that goes on, that's what we do. So the finished product of what goes on in the back is when you see that guy come to the cage and get prepped by one of us. So even, you know, the cut man wraps his hands, and then the cut man applies the Vaseline to the face, and then he's inspected. So we kind of have a little bit of a lot of stuff going on, interacting with the fighter that night of the show.
How many shows do you think you did? You say you've been at about 15 years at UFC.
About 15 years. So it's picked up now, so I would definitely say I'm well within to say close to 1,000, maybe over 1,000 shows that I've been involved in with this. So our fights, you know.
Yeah, if you're doing, you know, was there about 40 shows a year?
Yeah.
And if you're taking care of your, you know, you said you wrap about 5 people.
Right.
Dealing with about 5 people at a show. So that's about a couple hundred a year. So
two or three fights a night. Yeah. So I'm close to 1,000. You know, I'm not the most seasoned guy, but you know, I definitely got some miles on me. So you know, I don't think I panic too much in the cage, but you know.
You don't look like a guy that panics too much about nothing.
No, I've had some what if moments in the octagon. I'll definitely be honest with that. You know, you get in there and sometimes you just look. You know, you kind of freeze, and then, you know, sometimes the fights are so good you find yourself watching. You're like, oh shit, like I gotta go do that. So, but for the most part, no, man. I would like to say, like, you know, we get it done, you know, when we need to.
Yeah. How does one go about this life path where you're a young man? You said you grew up in rural Texas.
Right. Yeah. I grew up in a small town. Yeah.
So from small town, rural Texas, I grew up in a smaller community in Illinois myself, and how does one end up, you know, being on all these pay-per-view shows and around some of the most famous fighters in the world, some of the most important moments in UFC history? You're in there patching people up and getting them ready for the next round. How did this come to be?
I didn't set out to do this. I actually was a firefighter paramedic in New Mexico, and you know, when I was there, I would like help the guys with IVs and stuff. And so I would travel and go to shows and help them rehydrate after they cut weight. And this was when it was, you know, legitimate. You could do it. And I saw it, and I was just like, man, like I want to do more. And I spoke to Burt Watson, and I was like, man, you know, I went up and kind of gave him my credentials. Like, man, I'm a paramedic, and there's nothing in the cage that can go wrong that I haven't seen. And I do this. And he was like, well, can you wrap hands? And I was like, what? Like, what is that about? He said, yeah, you know, like, you know, wrapping hands, learn how to wrap hands. So had no clue. Just asking somebody to show you how to wrap hands was like a process. Like, because several people know, but it's like very few know that how to do it, like, you know, effective. Like, you got boxing wraps, you got different kind of wraps. So that was a part. So Mike Winklejohn helped me, and then Trevor Whitman helped me. Bob Ware was the guy that finally showed me. Don House helped me. Rudy Hernandez. So these guys kind of like showed me. And so I would learn, they would show me, of course, like going back and forth, I still wouldn't get it right, but I would get something kind of, and then I would go to the gyms and I'd be like, hey man, can I wrap your hands? And of course, like the pros that were like, you know, they're like, man, get the hell out of here. Like, no, you know, which is kind of funny. And then finally, like Melvin Gallara was like, yo man, yeah, like, I need my hands because my hands are this. So he started letting me practice on him. Michael Johnson was another guy. And so I would keep doing it and just, they would like it. It wouldn't hurt their hands. Their hands would feel pretty good. So then Melvin had a fight and was like, hey, Bert, this is my guy. Can he rap? You know, and of course, at that time, Bert knew me because I was around all the time because I was doing stuff with the fighters, you know? And so Bert finally was like, yeah, he can rap your hands. So I got to rap Melvin. So I rapped Melvin's hands a few times. And of course, Melvin won, nothing happened. And then I kept on pressuring Bert, like, man, I'm rapping and I'm doing this. He's like, yeah. He was like, yeah, but he's like, you forget sometimes, man, when the lights go on, people's lights go out. He was like, I can't have you go out to the cage and freak out. And I was like, yeah, Bert, come on, man. This is me, like, you know, not kind of knowing, kind of still kind of feeling myself a little bit, Bert, freak out, like, come on. So I would go to, like, the small shows in Texas. You know, that's why, like, when people ask me, I'm like, bro, would you pay to do this? Because I had to, man. Like, I would go to, like, small shows, stay in some of the worst hotels, you know, show up with my gauze and tape, wrap these guys' hands, and get the feel for everything. So, man, I had to do that for, like, 2 or 3 years. You know, and I kind of had the intern thing with the UFC where I was, like, just showing up again on my own, and Bert would let me in the back. I'd wrap Melvin's hands, and, you know, if he needed something, I could do red and blue. But I really wasn't kind of, like, in the thing yet. And finally, like, it happened in Toronto. Like, he gave me the shirt and told me to report to the hotel and kind of, you know, put me in. And there for a while, man, maybe like a year or two, I was, like, just doing red and blue, which is basically, red and blue is where you put, after the fighter's got his gloves on and his hands have been wrapped and he's getting ready to go to the cage, they put the red and blue tape on. So I must have did that for, like, a year, bro. Like, and he would give me, like, the first guy on the card, and he would let me wrap their hand. The very first fighter, which is pretty like, these guys are welcome to the UFC. They don't, you know, it's like, you're gonna wrap his hands. Because again, they're new, they don't know any better, you know. Of course they want the guys like Stitch and House and those guys, but Bert's like, nah, this is my guy, he's wrapping your hands. So I did that for like 2 or 3 years. And then finally we were in Nebraska, and Rudy Hernandez went to Bert and was like, hey, man, like, are we going to keep this guy? We're going to use this guy. Because if we're going to, it's not fair. We need to, like, see what he can do. We need to give him the opportunity. And Bert was kind of like, you know what, fine. He's your headache. So I was pretty much assigned to Rudy, you know, and so we're sitting there, and Rudy does this, and Rudy's kind of teaching me again, bro, like, keep in mind, like, I really didn't know anything, bro. I had the grease, and it was still so much that I did not learn about being a professional cutman, you know? And so, of course, Rudy starts getting there, and it's like a kid going to school for the first time, or like your son going on a date with the tie. Rudy's like, all right, you got to do this, you know? And at the time, I'm like, man, come on, like, you know, I'm ready. I'm so eager to get out there. And so Bert lets me go, and, I mean, are we allowed to curse or no? Or,
We can say anything if you want to.
So Bert goes, and Bert, you got to hear Bert got the old gravelly voice. He's the guy that says, we're rolling, and Bert was like the hype man. So Bert was like, all right, baby, don't f this up. And I'm like, so I've watched Stitch, and these guys are pros, bro. They're making it look good. They're finessing with the grease, and I'm like, you know, so the first thing I do is I get out there, man, I get my grease, right? Fighter comes up, and, you know, of course you hear Bert, like, don't freak out, you know, like, when the lights come on, you know. Of course there's nobody out there. It's like a few people in the arena, you know, but you can hear the music. This Brazilian fighter, I don't know his name, he comes up to me. This dude speaks no English. His music is going, he's feeling it, and he's just having a good time, and I'm getting ready to do my thing. Now, you gotta understand, I don't watch Stitch do this. I'm like, all right, man, I'm ready. I poked this guy in the eye. And I mean, I went to the second knuckle, bro. I was like there. And so he gets in the cage after I blinded him, you know, everybody's looking. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe this. And so he gets in the cage. He actually wins, but Bert is sitting there and he just looks at me. He's just like, didn't take you long to f that up, huh? And I'm like, come on, Bert. So now I'm like, man, I'm done. I'm like, they're gonna fire me before I start. So that was something that was really cool, man, that like actually had to humble me, because I was like, man, I'm a paramedic, this is nothing. But that experience like humbled me, because the dude didn't speak English. It was like everything was just perfect. Like, he didn't speak English. Here I am sitting there trying to talk to him, and I'm kind of like, you feel that adrenaline rush. You're like, I gotta hurry up and get this guy in here, you know? like he's here in front of me. So that was the first thing, is like becoming that cut man, the coming that, you know, doing it was like, I had to learn kind of take a breath and slow down. Like I was getting just as excited as the fighter, because I'm like, you know, I'm at UFC, you know. So keep moving forward, you know, I'm still going through my process. We go to another fight. Bro, I have like the grease on my hand that we apply to the face. Well, it's very light. You don't have to use a ton of grease. Nobody told me that. You know, they didn't tell me that in Cutman school. You know, and I'm sitting here thinking I know everything. So I have like a mound of grease on my hand, like a wad of bubble gum. And Herb was behind me, and I think Rob Monroe was there. And fighter comes out, and I don't know what happened, and I don't know how it happened, but somehow someone bumped me, and the grease is gone. So God comes to me, and he's sitting there looking at me, and I look down, I look at him, I look down, I look at him, and I'm like, So I just take the little grease and I put it on the thing, and I tell Rob, I'm like, yeah, I gave him the Phantom. And Rob, of course, is laughing at me. He's like, what happened? I'm like, bro, I don't know what happened to the grease. He said, what do you mean? I was like, bro, did it slip off my hand? Like, I don't know. And this is the first time I'm ever gonna admit this. It was on Buffer's suit. Somehow I bumped into Buffer and got the grease on Buffer's suit. And so, of course, like he goes up the thing and Rob looks and everybody's like, oh. Buffer goes up in there. And I feel so bad because Buffer's the greatest guy ever, right? But then, like a couple of months later, I'm like talking to Buffer. He's like, hey, Tate, watch out. He was like, yeah, man, one of the cut man bumped me and got grease on my suit. I was like, what? I was like, who did? Buffer, they got to be more careful with that stuff the whole time. It's not me. So Buffer sees this, he's probably going to come to me and be like, Tate, it was you. I'm like, yeah, it was me. So
I know Bruce Buffer. Buffer has done things for my business. Buffer's been, we did interview together like this. Like,
Buffer's amazing.
He comes and says hi. Every show he comes say hi, sometimes twice. He's really
Buffer's
nice man.
amazing. Buffer's so, but again, like when he called me, I was like, man, yeah. But I never told Buffer that, man. I never did, because he was just like, but now I even learned, like, I'm like, man, you don't need all that grease. So that was the first thing too, like, becoming a professional cut man, it takes like a year and a half before you learn how to get calm. You learn not to go in the cage, because man, I'd run up in the cage and wouldn't have the swabs dripping with adrenaline, you know, and it's like little mistakes. So now,
like the big swabs on the sticks.
yeah, like man, I'd go in there and be like, oh, I forgot to dip this in adrenaline, like, you know, but you put it in there. And so, like I said again, becoming a professional, it took some time. And of course, like Rudy and House and those guys working with me, like, hey man, slow down. Like, bro, even like the hand wraps, like, you know, my hand wraps are decent now. When I first started, oh my goodness gracious, bro. Like, it would just keep getting bigger and bigger. And I'll be like, shit. And the guy sitting there looking at me like, you know, like, yeah, man, I love it. It feels great, you know? And I'm like, this doesn't look like everybody else's hand wrap. Like, I don't want to say nothing, but I understand why Bert put me with those guys, because hell, they didn't know. You know, they didn't really know what was going on, but they're coming up from these small shows themselves. They're just like big lights, you know, UFC. So here's this guy that don't know what he's doing, and it must be okay because Bert said it was okay, you know?
I don't know the difference. Paulie Malignaggi is my boxing coach.
Okay.
And Paulie's, you know, a fantastic boxer. He's a multi-time world champion boxer. And so, you know, he wrapped my hands many times, and I figured out how to do it myself now,
Right.
that, you know, watching him do it. And we train together. He comes and sees me every month. We work out for like a few days together, like 3 days together, and till my fucking hands are sore and bruised and tender. And recently they hurt less because I have enough nerve damage now from punching shit.
Wow.
That they hurt a little less than they used to. So it's getting better. But is there a difference in, you know, you guys are using 4-ounce gloves at UFC, and we're using like 12 or 14-ounce gloves for, you know, just training together and, you know, playing around. So is there a difference in the way you wrap your hands for boxing versus those 4-ounce gloves for UFC, for MMA?
Well, if you honestly believe it, we use more padding in boxing because the way the UFC gloves is, that padding is right there. So, but you still have to use protection. And like, as far as like boxing, you'll go back further. With MMA, it's like here. So like when you wrap a guy's hands in MMA, you'll get a guy that's a wrestler. And those guys typically don't like a big, thick wrap. They want it very small because they want to grab and stuff like that. They don't really want their wrists too tight. You get punchers guys that are strikers that they want and understand, like, yo, this is to protect my hand. So they want that. So you have to learn, and different fighters, man, like some of the fighters that are like hard strikers really don't like a lot of padding, and they feel like it's, it takes away from their punching. So you typically give them what they want, man, and you want it to fit in there. Like the one thing you don't want is their hands to be so tight that they can't utilize them when they're in a fight. If they might have to grab or they might have to try to do something, you want them to be able to use their hands. So you want it to be firm but not too tight where their fingers are turning blue and all cold, which I learned that too, because guess what? I definitely, I'm a big guy, man. I realize like sometimes it's technique and I would be ratcheting on it, but I put it on real tight and the guy's hands turning blue. And of course they don't want to say something like bro, like I can see your hands are turning blue. Let me do this. So yeah, bro, the first couple of years of this, trust me, it was understandable why Bert kept me in the back. Cause I was, like I said, I would do things and these guys would have to critique me and tell me that. So I actually had to have a thick skin, like with dealing with Rudy. Like Rudy's like my mentor, like because he just gives it to you blunt. Like, hey, you sucked at this. You should have used the inswell. You didn't. Don't use this on this one. This is why that happened. And again, so learning to where now I'm very comfortable, but I'm not so comfortable that I don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like now I'm like, I take a deep breath. I see a guy get cut. Now I go through my regimen where I'm like, okay, I need to dip the swab now. I need this. I got this much time. And now I have my benchmarks. So if I stay to those things typically will flow smoother versus me kind of just winging it, now. Like I have my bucket. I have what I need. I have it, okay. I'm watching the fight, but I'm also watching the clock. Okay, half the round's gone. Let me see what's going on. Okay, I'm going to dip the swab just in case I go in there. Because sometimes I went in the cage and all of a sudden the guy's cut. I'm like, you didn't see it because it wasn't bleeding, but I tend to try not to, sometimes I went in without the inswell and then the guy's like swelling. I'm like, so now I tend to have my inswell, have one of the swabs ready, and then, have a cold towel so I can kind of maneuver and see what I'm doing. But it's easy to get excited, man. And some of these great fights, you're in there running and you're grabbing the guy, and it's that's the part where you have to always remember, like, yo, stay calm, let's be effective, slow is fast.
You have some interpersonal moments in there when you're fixing somebody up and you can tell that they know you or they feel comfortable with you, that they feel good you got their back and you're taking care of them.
Sometimes you'll hear the fighter like call your name, like, hey, Tate, you're like, okay, that's really a cool feeling. And sometimes, like I have this damn face that like my expressions, bro, and I really don't do it on purpose, but like, I had a fighter and her nose was broke and she's like, I think my nose is broke, and I'm kind of like, no, and like she kind of moved and you could hear the bone crunching, and I was like, no, it's good, it's good. And then after the fight, she was like, you lied to me, my nose is broke. I'm like, yeah, it's bad, it's real bad. But that's the funniest thing is like I try to mask it, man, but sometimes I'm just like, when I have the face where I'm perplexed, I'm just like, okay, or you see some stuff, but for the most part, yeah, man, the guys see you, you'll be in the back wrapping their hands, they'll ask if you're going to be in their corner. And then the good thing is, at this level, the UFC, we all professional cutmen. So like, it's not like I'm the best or whatever. Any of those guys at the cage at that time are going to do a great job. But it is a great feeling, man, when you can be in there, and they do. They trust you. They know they got you. You might hear one be like, hey, can you stop this? Or, if they see concern, like the cut is bad and it might be getting stopped or something like that, they're like, hey, you got me. But, we're kind of like an afterthought, but sometimes, yeah, they'll be like, hey, or you'll see them give you a hug at the cage or dap you up. Like, it's a cool feeling, like, this guy knows me, like, I'm just not something,
You guys get randomly assigned to the fighters, or can the fighter say, like, I want Tate to look out for me, or this other fellow to look out for me?
Yeah, we try to like make the fighter comfortable and give them what they want. So like, yeah, and there's no ego. So if like a fighter was adamant, like, hey, I want this guy in my corner, we would make that happen. The fighters do, when they show up, they get to request us as far as like hand wrapping. So again, like the cage is the glory part of it. It's the beautiful part of the job. The hand wrapping to me is the most important because that's where the fighter's like, I want this guy to wrap my hands. You know, that's how you earn your keep. And that's the part that I really enjoy, the hand wrapping part. You know, and you're back in the bag, there's not a lot of cameras. You can kind of be friends with the coaches. And, you know, you gotta understand, like, we're doing so many shows, we're like a family. So we see each other, you know. So, like, on this Saturday, hey, man, what's going on? And this guy's got another fighter, and he's back next Saturday. He's like, man, did that ever work out? How's your wife? How's your family? What's going on with you? You know, even, like, with the fighters, you know, that's a cool environment where when they come in the back, they give you a hug. Hey, man, you got me? Yeah. You know, how's everything going at home? Oh, man, it's cool. Wife is good. I just had a baby. You know, oh, how's the baby? They show you pictures, which is crazy, you know, because this guy's getting ready to go fight. But at the same time, he can give me 5 minutes to tell me everything's good with him, you know, and then we get to work, you know. And then I like it where I love the fighters when it's like a light atmosphere and there's a bunch of trash talking going on and we're not all serious. That's like probably one of the best things, because I'll be honest with you, even now, I still get nervous. Like, you gotta understand, like, you know, this person is like trusting you with his hands, his career, you know. And you don't ever want to see someone go out there and throw a punch and then it's like, oh, like, you don't want that. So for me, I'm watching a fight, especially of guys that I rap, because I'm like, okay, he's doing well, and, you know, he okay, good, you know, that. But then some of the fighters too, man, you get close to too, and they lose, and it's like, fuck, you know, man, on any given night, it's a lot of up and downs. You know, you go from like, oh my God, this is the greatest person and this is the greatest event, to, wow, like, you know, especially like when guys that I like are fighting each other. That shit sucks, man. You're just like, you know.
I got some of that going on now that I train with some of the guys that several of them come to my home, and I've done interviews with several dozen now people from UFC and other sports too, but, you know, the UFC is the only sport that I pay any attention to, or that I personally go to or I watch or I think it's interesting, you know. And yeah, you know, I don't want to say the names, but there's a fight coming up. Then I'm like, man, I like both those guys, and like I know both those guys, and I like both those guys, and I've had a few of those type of situations come up now where you know, one of my buddies will have a fight with somebody and might not work out for him, and then later on, you know, that guy is saying, oh hey, I'd love to do an interview with you, and, you know, somewhere in my head I'd be like, well, I'd like to do that too, but it's not the right timing given the situation, you know.
And that was something that I dealt with a lot. When I first got into the sport, like, I was in Albuquerque and I was at Jackson's. So, like, all those guys, man, it was like, you know, that was like, I felt like the family. So I kind of like had this, like, this loyalty to those guys.
For people that don't know, if you're saying the Jackson Wink
Jackson
gym down
Wink, yeah, Jackson. It was actually Jackson's MMA. It wasn't Jackson Wink. But,
gotcha. So it's one of the best MMA gyms in the country, in the world.
Yeah, when I first got in, bro, they had like GSP, Carlos Condit, Rashad Evans. I mean, they had champions, man. Even John Jones had started out there. You know,
Holly
Diego
Holm.
Sanchez, Holly Holm. Like, they had so many great fighters. So it was very easy, you know, like, because they were the cream of the cream. They were champions. They, you know, so you didn't really have to deal with that. But then, like, as guys left camps and moved, and then the more you were around the sport and you, like, take a liking to guys, you know, like Cowboy leaves, and all of a sudden you, like, got these guys fighting each other, you know, Carlos Condit and GSP, and it's like, like, what are we doing here, you know? And that part was, like, kind of crazy, because at that point, man, I felt like I had to start choosing sides. And then it was crazy because at that point, too, I was like, I don't have to choose a side. Like, I'm cool. You guys are going to get in here and fight. This is what y'all do. You know, like, when y'all done, I'm cool with you. I'm cool with you. Like, I don't have to necessarily pick sides. You know, and that was the big thing, too, that even Bert was concerned about. He was like, man, like, what happens if you have to wrap a guy's hand as fighting Rashad? You know, and Rashad's like a brother to me. So I was like, well, you know, I would have to wrap his hands. But, you know, I had never thought about that. And now, like, I can do it. Like, it's not a problem. Like, there's guys who I'll rap, and, you know, because, like, I'm just here, you know. If you put in the time and the training and you know what you did, this is just, you know, this is the easy part for me. Like, I don't have anything to say. I don't have a say on who's going to win or who's going to be victorious. Y'all pretty much have that say. I'm just here to facilitate and do a job. And that was cool. But like when I first started, man, that would be something, you know, like GSP would be fighting this guy, or you know, Rashad was fighting this guy, and you know, Rashad and John fought. Like I was like, you know, Rashad brought me in the sport. You know, John, I consider a friend, and it was like, and then these guys are fighting each other, you know. And
I was just with Rashad last week. I first met Rashad around the time he was champion years ago, and we were around each other. I don't know how many, numerous times, you know. And we didn't have a close relationship, but we'd see each other out or whatnot. And
Right.
The first time I met Rashad, I was at a club in Las Vegas, and I went there frequently. So the bartenders knew me as very easier for me to get a drink than most anybody in the environment, you know.
Right.
So I'm at the bar, and I was just going to order a couple vodka drinks, and just over my right shoulder pops Rashad's head, and I was like, what's up? I said, what you drink, man? And he's like, I'm just drinking water. And so I got him a Fiji water, I handed it over to him, and shared a little fist bump, and I just bounced and went back to my life, and like he got plenty of attention from enough people, and I knew who the man was, and I liked the guy, but I was never the type of guy that, I need to take a bunch of pictures or
Right.
do these, the things that a lot of people do.
Right.
And funny enough, that worked out really good for me over the years.
I remember just times with this guy, bro. Like when he left, when we went from Albuquerque to Denver for his camp, and he won't mind the story, but I remember we drove to Denver, right? And he was going to do a camp, and this was probably the funnest camp we ever had, man. It was literally like myself, Mike Van Arsdale, and so we first drive up there. I love to drive, so we drive up there, and we go to this place, and I think his friend McSweeney recommended this place. It turned out to be like a halfway house. And Rashad was like, man, and I had never kind of understood camp. I was like, I'm not standing this shit, man. It was like, man, it was bad. I mean, it was crackheads. He's like, we're gonna leave and they're gonna steal our shit. So we go to a hotel, and Rashad's just like, man, I gotta talk to Sweeney. He's like, bro, I can't be doing this. So of course I'm always joking with Rashad, the people around the UFC, I'm the shit talker. I'm always poking fun, bro. I'm always that guy. So I'm looking at Rashad oh, so that's how it is now. You so uppity, you can't stand there. He's
Stay here with the crackheads.
Yeah, I'm like, we can't stay here. We're above this. And he's like, dude, and he kind of looks at me. He's like, I'm not in the mood for your shit. He's like, don't say anything, And I'm just like, really? He's like, I don't want to hear shit. He's like, nothing. So he was like mad. So we go to the hotel. The next day we go and we find this place. And it's crazy because it's downtown Denver. It's a hopping area, It's right next to the stadium and all this. So it was myself and Van. And Rashad, as cool as he is, he's new now, but it was always controversy. So Rashad gets the room. He's like, yeah, I'm in this room. So Van and I are literally fighting over the extra room. So, and Rashad loves it. He's cracking up at this. He's like, man, I don't know. Y'all can have that room. I'm over here. So of course, Van and me are fighting over the room, and Rashad's laughing about it. But we're in this place, and of course, we're loud. But bro, we were literally the quietest people there. Every day there was something going on in this place where we were staying, and we were we're the calm ones, But we would be in the house, man, and Rashad was dialed in. So we were in camp, so it was none of this craziness. We would literally come here, and Van and me would be going crazy. We'd start playing games on YouTube, who could name this song or who could pick a better song, and Rashad would be the judge of it. And it was just still to this day, if you ask him, he'll say that was the best camp we had because it was just us. Man, we would be cooking. I would cook, and we would just have it. Rashad was like, man, we can't be eating this shit. I'm not gonna make weight. So one day he would be like, all right, y'all can cook, and we would eat, man. And it was just Rashad, myself, Van, and Trevor, and we were just in Denver. And every day it would be different weather. It would snow, it would rain, it would be windy, it would be sunshine. But we would just be in the house watching movies, life, just three grown men acting like kids, man, picking on each other. If Van was somewhere, I would have to come over there and antagonize Van. And Rashad would be sitting there oh, watch this. But, he actually won the fight, and it was even better. But we never could, do a camp like that again, But, whenever I'm around Rashad or Rashad and Van and myself or even Kamaru or Michael Johnson, bro, it's brothers, and all we do is just at each other the whole time. just constant, you know. And that's how you know, like, there's love. But it's the same thing in the back at the UFC, man. You guys are out there, I'm either picking on Roger. Roger will say something about this. He'll be like, oh, I fell asleep during the show. Like, that's how they support you. Like, that's how you know your friends support you is when they talk shit about you. Like, guys watch the pay-per-view and like, man, I saw you, you're fat. I'm like, hey, thanks, guy. You know, like, that's, I guess, how we say, hey, kudos or whatever. Hey, man, I appreciate you. But, you know, that's the funniest part about this sport, man. You meet different people, but you can always be yourself, you know, and we always have a bunch of fun. Bro, if you're not laughing and having a good time, it's just something's wrong with it, you know.
You mentioned to me earlier, you told Rashad you were coming over here.
Oh, yeah, Rashad, and he had nothing but good. Because, like, I'll tell people, like, bro, like, you see me, and I'm like, I'm always talking trash to everybody. You know, I'm the class clown. But, like, this made me nervous. And, of course, Rashad's like, bro, relax. I'm like, nah, bro, like, I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know if I was expecting you to, like, be like, hey, so tell me this. And I'm like, I don't know if I can talk about this, you know, whatever. But Rashad's like, man, it's cool. You're just going to sit back. Y'all going to be like old friends. He's like, you're going to feel it. And he's right. You know, like, the first few minutes of this, I was like, okay. But now, like, I'm getting comfortable, and I'm like, okay. You know, like, I was like, you know, do I rock back and forth? So, you know, you do make me nervous. But
That's hilarious to me because I'm a big man, but you're a really, really big man. And that's hilarious to me. You say, you know, man, I'm a little nervous around you, Moneyberg.
I am, man. Like, I'm just like, even like, you know, like, you gotta understand, like, even watching you at the Apex, like, you have this presence. And of course, like, you're in a show that's for certain people, and you're like walking in, and it's like, and you know, in the back, you're like, yeah, these select people, and it's like, so you're like, we don't want to offend. And like, you know, when you stand up and you're like, you're a large man, it's like, hey, you know, and you have this confidence, so it's like, should I be talking to this guy? Should I not? But again, talking to Rashad and all the fighters that you know, they're just like, bro, and watching some of the interviews you've done, I'm like, oh, he is cool. Like, he is what he says he is. And even you told me, like, hey, man, listen, this is not, you know, this is not me trying to set you up, you know, and all of a sudden I ask you something that is personal, or like, hey, you know, I'm not over here researching trying to trip you up and make you feel uncomfortable.
You know, I did a lot of media interviews, like maybe 60 or so, maybe, and as a, you know, Bloomberg Television and Fox News and ABC and NBC and CBS and whatever, you know, and a bunch of like written publications, and most of them are really nice.
Right.
Most of them are really nice. And once in a while, they talk to you nice, you know, before you record something or before you do something, and then, you know, they try to set you up for some bullshit, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just nonsense. So, you know, there's one publication, I don't need to say the name of the publication, but they wrote some shit about me that's just not true. That, like,
Right.
And I fucking called the contact back and I said, like, I recorded our conversation together. Like, the shit you published, like, I never said that.
Right.
I never said anything like that.
Right.
So you're going to take that shit down today, and, you know, you can put something up that we actually talked about, or take it down entirely. Like, I don't give a which, but you're not going to say that I said this, and that. Like, I recorded our conversation.
Right.
Well, I never said that.
See, that's
And, like, I never want to be. I'm not a trendy person. This is the core of it. Is like, I don't give a shit about the new trend.
right.
I don't care about whatever the trendy bullshit is. And I think there's like, if you look on the internet, you see, you and I talked about this in a business context previously. It's like, you see people trying to get rich quick and try to get shit they don't deserve, and, you know, they want to poke at each other or try to take something from somebody else and make themselves look good. And you know, I'm a little grumpy. Like, I don't need to make friends with everybody, but anybody that I spend time with, you know, they're going to say good things about me. I have a lot of relationships that are 10, 15, 20 years, you know.
Right.
And you know, I always like to treat people good, and I'm never trying to set somebody up for something or do some of that shady shit. Like, I like to talk about things that are like, what's it take to accomplish something really?
Right. And that's the thing, like, even like I said, Rashad, like, was telling me, like, he's like, you're just gonna talk, man. It's like friends, you know. And that's the part that you're 100% right, man. And you did. You calmed me down, because, you know, people, I don't know, like, they want or expect something, you know. And it's like, I'm just average, you know, and I can't run around and do that, you know. Like, what you see on Instagram is not me. You know, like I love to read books. I love to have conversations where I'm like, man, give me something out of this. Like I want to learn something. You know, not just you and me just sit around shooting the shit about dumb stuff. You know, there's a time for that, and I enjoy it. But I'm also like, man, like I want conversation to be beneficial. Like, okay, I learned something that I didn't know. And so that's the thing too, you know. And I don't ever want to come off as like this person that just is an airhead or not genuine. You know, like I don't want that. You know, like I said, I'm from a small town, man. This process was long, you know, and I've made several mistakes, and I'm gonna make several more mistakes. But I don't want someone to look at me and be like, oh, this guy has it because he has it all, because that's not true. That's just not true. Like, you know, I'm in my position. I've worked hard. I'm still working. I'm still trying to achieve things. But I feel like we're very good at showing success. We're not good at showing failures. And I feel like people sometimes believe like successful people, I mean, I'm sure it's been documented enough, like there's a lot of hard work, but I still don't think you believe it. You know, kind of like, it's like that, it's like you don't believe it till it's over, or you one of those people that says, this is not me, or it would never happen to me. You know, so like, even though I can tell you, man, you have to bust your butt to be successful, there's still people that feel like, no, not me. Like, I got, you know. And it's like, no, that's absolutely not true. Like, you know, these people that are successful all say the same thing, but it's still that one person that's like, no, not me. I got this. I can do this. Like, you know.
Those people have real, you know, if they have a little bit of success in the short term, it's a fraction of what they could have had.
Yeah.
And they tend to have shit outcomes over time.
Right.
But I'm about 43. I spent 9 years in university. So I'm a high school dropout.
Okay.
So I was a little badass kid, got into trouble in all sorts of ways as a teenager, you know?
Right.
And then I had to go to community college. I couldn't even qualify to go to a good university, you know?
Right.
I had to go to community college for a couple of years. I had mostly A's. And, you know, I got a 50% scholarship to go to like a good private school.
Okay.
I could have had like a free scholarship to go to an okay school, but I wanted to go to the best school I could go to.
Right.
You know? And then later on, I went to University of Chicago for their business school, for their Master's of Business Administration program, MBA. That's a top program. Everybody knows the name Harvard or Stanford or those schools, but like my program was ranked higher. It was ranked number 1 out of 416 at the time that I was there.
Okay.
So, you know, I spent 9 years in university. I worked on business stuff since I was 7, literally. Like my first entrepreneurial money came in when I was 7.
Right.
I've been an entrepreneur every moment of that time, probably before then, but at least since then. But I still learn new shit every day.
Right.
And, you know, you have to. If you're not learning new things, you're stagnating and falling. And, you know, so somebody that thinks they already know everything, they're not going to learn much more, you know? So I have that, and I'm not saying I always like it, but, you know, life has taught me that humility that, like, well, the more I learn, the more I'll earn, you know?
Right.
If you knew better, you'd do better.
Right.
And those little simple adages like that anytime that you know, earlier in life, I hope to think that I don't do it so much anymore, but, you know, anytime that I got a little cocky I mean, I'm a little cocky. I enjoy being a little cocky, and you have that part of your personality too.
Right.
But it's not arrogance, you know?
Right.
Cocky is like you're talking shit, but you know you're talking shit.
100%.
But somebody that's arrogant, like, thinks they have a skill that they don't have, and
Right.
like, you know, you know what happens when somebody thinks they have a skill they don't have, and they get in the ring, for instance.
Right, yeah. Trust me, you go there and poke a fighter in the eye. But, you know, this whole I want it now, I want what you got, and that, like, I feel like that's a problem, you know, because it's just not easy. You know, being successful is not easy. Like, even being an adult, man, like, it's tough, you know, and if you don't prepare yourself and make the right decisions, life can be even harder, you know, than it already is going to be. You're going to have challenges, but what do you do with those challenges, you know? Like, of course, they like, you know, like, now you have sayings where people like, you want to fail every time because you learn by failure. And that's true. Like, you know, like my grandfather would say that, you know, you can learn a lot from mistakes, but he was like, if you really want to be smart, you learn from other people's mistakes. So that's why I love reading about other people. But again, I just feel like we feel like everything is supposed to be easy, and it's not. You know, like things that look easy, like you and what you do, being these guys that are professional cutman, like it looks easy because thousands and thousands of hours went into doing that thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's supposed to look easy. You know, my hand wrap, and I learned that when I first started, my hand wraps don't look the same as they did when I first started. My hand wraps, honestly, when I first started was terrible. Like, I can't even believe people won. Like, I'm not lying. Like, bro, like, you would look at that and be like, holy shit, like, this guy's in the, and I even heard some coaches be like, this guy's in the UFC, like, what? I didn't know. Now, like, you know, my hand wrap has gotten better. It's maybe not the best, but it's gotten better to where I'm confident with it, you know, and even going in the cage now, like, bro, like, I was worried, you know. I used to wait for the fighter to come, and now I don't have a problem going and getting the fighter. So if it looks easy, it's because I've put the time in, you know what I'm saying? But it wasn't easy. Trust me, it wasn't. Like,
if something's easy for somebody to do, this is a really valuable learning lesson from what we're talking about. And we should talk about entrepreneurship too.
Okay.
You know? Like, if something's really easy for just anybody could do that shit, you can't be well compensated for something that like anybody could do.
that's true.
You know,
I never looked at it that way. That's 100% true.
the only things you're going to be well compensated for is like, you know, you developed a skill or a talent that, you know, there's a barrier to entry that, you know, it'd take me a number of years to, you know, if I was allowed to be in the position you're in, if that was my calling to go down that path, I couldn't do what you do this week.
Right.
It'd take me a number of years to have, you know, you pick up a lot of things, you could pick up 70, 80% in year one. But then there's like, you know, I bet you're still learning stuff now. But
Still learning.
There's still little nuance and little details. I'm sure you're still picking up 15 years later, you know?
100%. Like, yeah, like, no fighter's ever the same, and no fight is ever the same, you know? And
A person got to learn to embrace that is kind of the point I want to get to. Is like a person's got to learn to embrace that. Like the easy way is not going to lead to great benefits and great rewards in your life. That if you can do some difficult things that most people wouldn't be willing to do that shit, you can end up in some very unique places in life. You can end up with a lot better circumstances than you might imagine. And one thing I took issue with earlier, you said you just average. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not though, man. You know, yeah, but you're not. But you did some things that average people show up. They don't even have the creativity of thought to go do something unique. You know, they show up to their job. You know, they take orders from somebody they don't necessarily like or respect most of the time, and you know they go through their routines and they do. You know, I mean, 50th percentile person don't make much money.
Right.
Don't value education so much. You know, I support their right to live their life however they want to, but it's not the life that I chose, and frankly, I think it's not the life that you chose either. That you're not an average person. That you developed a differentiated skill set and put yourself in a really unique position here. But then you're also a business owner. That
Right.
You told me you own 15 trucks in your
Yeah.
trucking company.
I own a trucking company. Again, I've always been, and this is from my father, my grandfather, I've always been like that person that like, I want to do a lot. Mm-hmm. So like me, I was in the fire service. I worked for Southwest Airlines. I'm a UFC Cutman, and I own a trucking company. I live in Boca Raton and I also reside in Las Vegas. So I have a lot of irons in the fire, but that's just how I chose, man. I want to explore. I want to do that. So even like with the trucking thing, you know, I got into it and I didn't know what I was getting into. And I tell you now, man, everybody's not cut out to be a business owner. And if you're not, and there's no disrespect to people. Like people really think, and I don't want to be bold enough to say, but like I hate these like motivation books and all that stuff. Like, bro, like to be successful is hard work. Period. Like there's no formula. There's no, you could tell me, okay, Brad, I can show you how to make $1 million, but it's gonna take me time and effort and a lot of mistakes and a lot of headaches to get there. It's never gonna be just that. And that's the thing that I don't think people understand. It's like, bro, like, if I didn't love my trucking company, I would have quit, because an average person or a normal person will like work 8 to 10 hours and bitch about it. A business owner is gonna work 20 hours and they're gonna bitch about it.
Take a nap and do it again.
Exactly, and guess what? They get the money, but they can't even enjoy the money because guess what? They're so busy trying to do things. And that's the point where I'm saying, like, whenever people's like, oh, I want to do this, I'm doing this. Do you really? Because if you really want to do it, then guess what? You're not going to have as much fun as you think you are. You know, you're going to be stressed. You're going to be like, oh, what is this person doing? Why is this person doing this? You know, being accountable for other people is a headache. So like I tell people like, man, you're not cut out for that. And then sometimes, you know, maybe it's just me being brash, but I kind of get offended when people like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, and especially if I know they're lazy. I'm like, bro, don't waste my time because my time is too valuable. So don't ask me about something that I'm gonna end up having to do for you, or I'm gonna have to put in way more effort than you are because you don't want to do it. You know, and that's the thing about me, and I'm pretty sure you're the same way. Like, your time is so valuable, and you're not opposed to giving and helping, but don't waste that time because I need that time. You know,
A harsh lesson I learned from my mother that I tried to do too much for her, and she didn't really want to take care of herself.
Okay.
And you know, I burned this in my head that like you can't help somebody that don't want to help themselves.
100%.
I feel very bad inside for time that I spent trying to help people. They didn't even want to help themselves. You could tell them exactly what to do, exactly how to do it. These are the steps. These are the things to avoid. These are a couple things you must do. Here's a couple things that are optional. You can give them the whole roadmap.
Right.
And you know, I'm fussy that way with my clients. Like the cheapest program that I have that you can talk to me personally, to talk to me live, you know, a client pays $5,000 for that.
Uh-huh.
And you can't just click a button on the internet and buy that shit. Like they have to fill out they have to request an interview.
Right. Okay.
And if they can't manage to fill out the form, it's not a hard form, man.
Right.
It take you 5 minutes, you know. If you can't fill out the form, we don't call them.
It's just effort.
And then once in a while, they say, you know, hey, I filled out the thing, but you know, I never heard from anybody. And like, yeah, you probably skipped a couple things in there.
That's the process. That's the weeding out process is the form. But it's the same thing.
And then they got to have an interview with my team. Mm-hmm. And like, if they can't answer some simple questions, it's not hard, man. But if they can't answer some simple questions, like, you know, why do you want to work with me personally? Like, why is it important for you to work with me? Mm-hmm. If they don't know why it's important to work with me, like, why the f am I spending my time with that
100%,
person?
100%.
So I'm happy to help somebody, but they got to be willing to help themselves. And if they don't think there's nothing special about me or that I couldn't help them in some way that somebody else could, you know, I had to go talk to Bobo down the street, see what he's going to do for your finances. Go talk to, you know, whoever in the neighborhood to see what they're going to do for your finances.
100%.
So I agree with you. I find it like disrespectful when somebody asks me like, you know, hey, what book should I read about blah blah blah, and I'm like, you're going to read a book about jujitsu, or you're going to read a book about finance and think that you really understand finance?
100%.
Like, I spent 9 years in universities. I went to some of the best universities in the world, and I'm learning new stuff all the. Warren Buffett, when he was 86, there's a quote that really put things in perspective for me. When he was 86 years old, Buffett said he thinks he understands about 2% to what there is to understand about business.
Wow.
At age 86.
That's crazy.
With his master's in business, you know, from a fancy school, just
One
like
of the wealthiest men in the planet.
And you know, and if you think about that, that's a man who could speak to anyone on earth. You know,
Right.
He could call he could, if he didn't have their information, he would know somebody that knows anybody on earth that'd be happy to take his phone call. The
100%.
world leader, other billionaires. Probably could make time. Could you make time for Buffett if you want to chat with you today?
I would love to. That's priceless.
So if here's a man who had, you know, a high IQ, the best education of his time, of his generation, had access to speak to the most brilliant and resourceful people on earth, and he's humble enough to say he thinks he understands about 2% to what there is to know about business. So that really put things into perspective for me that, like, you know, if Warren Buffett at 86 knows 2%, then I'd be fortunate to think that maybe I know 1%, you know?
100%.
Which means there's a whole lot for me to learn yet.
That, again, man, just talking to you, and that's something like, even in South Florida, like when I'm at the gym where we work out and I talk to young people, for some reason, man, I'm a kid at heart, so I gravitate to young people. And it's funny talking to them because I'm just like, man, you have no idea. Like, you have no idea. Life is going to grab you and choke the shit out of you. And I'm like, the way they just see things, and I'm like, and I'm not bashing young people, you know, because I was young, man. I remember my grandfather used to tell me shit. I was like, man, what do you know? And now, like, this dude was the smartest man on the planet, you know, now that I'm 40 years old. But I just see it, and I'm just like, this is not, and that's what frustrates me, Derek, because when I'm like, I know that's not going to work, you know. And then you come off as like a jerk because it's like, well, man, I try to talk to you. Like, bro, I know that's not going to work. That's not how that works. That's not how it's built. I can't even bring you to people to even set you up for success because they're going to see this and see you trying to bullshit them. And they don't want to waste their time with it, man. They want people that really want to work. The same thing like you said with filling out the form. I can't tell you how many times people have asked me stuff, and I'm like, all right, meet me here. I'm like, hey, where are you at? Oh, man, this came up. Bro, don't waste my time. Like, you know, don't waste my time. Or I'll give somebody a book. Hey, man, you should read this book. And then the thing is, I love to read. So when I'm like, I'm giving you a book and asking you about it, and I can even tell you, this is my nephew, man. My nephew, like, frustrated me. He's in high school. And so I give him a book to read. And I was like, this would be cool. Him and I can read this book together. And the deal was, if you read this book, I'm going to get you a brand new PlayStation and 3 games, whatever games you want. So we start talking about this book. Well, I call him up, and I'm like, hey, man, tell me about this book. And he starts, like, kind of, like, babbling around. I'm like, this shit was on the first page. Like, there's no way you're reading this book because this is on the first page. And then I'm asking him about stuff, and I'm like, how do you not know this? This is like, you have to know this, you know? And I got so mad at him because I was just like, this is what I'm dealing with. Like, I'm willing to give you this game and all this, but you won't even put the effort in to read it. But then you come to me and tell me, well, I think I'm gonna go play in the NFL. I'm like, there's no way in hell you're gonna play in the NFL. I said, there's no way in hell you're gonna make it to college. So then I come off as this negative person, you know, and of course my mom was like, why would you say that? I'm like, I don't have time for the bullshit. I'm spending 16 to 17 hours a day. I'm either on a plane flying to Vegas, I'm either trying to run a trucking company, you know, I'm doing all this. Like, I don't have 30 minutes or an hour to bullshit with this kid that clearly doesn't want it, you know.
Do you know Eric Dickerson?
Yeah.
You know who Eric Dickerson is?
Yeah.
I had a chat with Eric Dickerson like this, and you know, he's maybe, I think he's like number 38 or so on the top 100 NFL players of all time.
Pony Express, that dude was amazing.
Yep, that's him. And so yeah, man, he told me a story like, you know, if somebody tells me something privately or off camera, then it's private.
Right.
He publicly mentioned that he's got a nephew like this.
Right.
And he says nephew is very naturally talented. He's a very talented guy. But he said he's also lazy. And he said, the kid thinks he's going to go to the NFL and he's going to be, you know, a big star like his uncle. And he's like, man, you know, you ain't doing the things, you know, this ain't what it looks like, you know?
100%.
And so he just made me think about that. You know, he's going to go to the NFL. He ain't got the work ethic to read the book, but he's going to go be a NFL star now.
Like I said, man, I'm very giving because I want, you know, I'm a big believer in like, man, I love my alone time, but like if I'm at the top, I want people with me. You know, like I feel like Rashad kind of blessed me and brought me up, you know, being a champion and kind of vouching for me. So I want to give that back, but like it just sucks, man, because when you look back and you're just like, I can't do this for you. Like you have to put in the work. Like you have to be willing. I'll facilitate it. Like I'm confident enough. I know enough people that I can help anybody if they want to achieve something. I know enough people, but then I'm just like, I don't even like introducing people because I don't want to burn that bridge because you reflect poorly on me, you know? And I like, that's the thing, like I said, man, I really feel, and I know we got off topic, but I just feel like in today's environment, people look at success and they think it just happened, you know? And I think some situations it's the right place, like with me with the UFC, the Cutman thing, it was the right place, it was the right time, but it was also me willing to spend that 3 to 4 years of doing this to show Bert, like, if this is what you told me to do, then I'm gonna do this. And every day he would see me, I'm like, hey Bert, I just worked this show and bum whatever place. You know, I think I got bed bugs, but hey, I went there. You know, hey Bert, I went over here and did this for free. Hey Bert, let me wipe hands so you can see it. And that's the part like people don't see. You know, like they didn't see that time put in with this. And so
you're overnight success now.
Yeah, now it's like, oh, you know, and again, I enjoy it. I still don't even believe it. Like, I tell people all the time, like when people are like, hey, I want a picture with you, or hey, I want to, I'm like, what, why? Like, you know, like it's still new. Like I don't consider myself anything. I'm Tate. But, you know, it's fun, but it's crazy, like so many people, like even like when people ask me about it, like, man, how do I be a cut man? I'm like, first question, would you do it for free?
For years.
And everybody's like, yeah. I'm like, would you pay to do it? what do you mean? Like, bro, like, you got to go to these gyms. You got to start learning. You have to put in time, you know? And again, it's, what if I don't have a gym by me? Well, find a gym. Well, I might have to drive 50 miles. Well, guess what? Fighters that fight in the UFC, sometimes they commute 100 miles one way to go train. I'm like, how bad do you want it? You know, like, this is not easy.
Tito Ortiz has become a friend of mine over time, like a friend, and we spend a lot of time together, and he's been to my home, and we train together and do things. And he said, well, he was champion. He's a 6-time champion back in the day, Hall of Famer, you know. And Tito said when he was champion, he'd have to travel from Orange County to Los Angeles, you know, more than an hour each way.
Wow.
He says a 3-hour drive because he wanted to work with a particular coach in Los Angeles.
Right.
So he was already world champion, and he's taken a 3-hour drive a couple times a week to go train with a specific coach that helped him out.
Those people are built different, you know, and that's the thing. Like I said again, like, when I get asked questions about being a Cutman, I'm like, bro, like, this is not an easy path, you know, and you know, you're not gonna be rich, and you're not gonna be, you know, all this. Like, so is this something you want to do? And I feel like people want to be Cutman because they can't be fighters, you know, and that's the honest to God truth. Like, hell, I can't be a fighter. There's no way I could do this. But I do feel like when I'm asked about it, and it's like, you know, they want to be a Cutman because it's easier than trying to be a fighter. And I just, you know, again, not to get off topic, I just feel like sometimes people really don't understand. Like, and I think we're guilty of it. We don't show the struggles. Like, I know I'm guilty of it. I will never post a picture of myself messing up a hand wrap, or me being frustrated or almost losing my trucking company and all that. Like, I don't post that. I'll post pictures of the 15 with me out there. So I guess we're guilty of that. But I just don't want people to ever think like success is easy. Like, you can buy all the successful help books, you know, but we don't even have to read 500 pages. You know, don't quit. The shit's gonna get hard. Don't give up. When it gets hard again, don't give up. You know, like, the help book is like, don't give up, don't give up. You know, if you want this, you know.
Two things I thought about while you've been chatting is that, you know, sometimes people mistake me for a motivational coach. But I'm not here to motivate anybody.
Right.
If they ain't already motivated, like, 'cause you're going to need a hell of a lot more than motivation. There are going to be times where, there's times I wake up today and I have, you know, no motivation. I'm like, well, but I also got shit to do.
Right, 100%.
You know, I'm saying, well, I don't feel like it today. Well, the success gods don't give a shit what I feel like. They only care about the behaviors I engage in today.
Right.
Success gods don't care about your feelings or mine.
No, they
The
don't.
success gods only care about what sort of behaviors we're going to engage in today that's going to lead to a better outcome. And,
100%.
you know, and I have this thought in my head. I'm not the most altruistic person, nor do I ever pretend to be. That I'm happy to help people, but again, I want to help people that they're already doing well and they want to do a lot better.
Yes.
And, you know, I grew up around losers. I am not going to spend my adult life around losers. I work my ass off to get away from losers, and I'm not spending time with these people. That I wish them well, but not with me. So if somebody's you're already doing good at something, you want to do significantly better, those are the people that I feel like I can help. But I'm not there to motivate them, man. Like, they got to be motivated, and again, motivation's not enough. They're going to have to be disciplined. They're going to have to look stupid and feel stupid. Like,
Right.
Man, when I started training with, like, this might sound half crazy to you, but like when I started training in MMA, I never went to like my mom wouldn't let me go to like the local karate gym or the local boxing gym because I was already getting in fights and shit as a kid, and she thought it was going to be trouble. Now the truth is, and you know that too, that had I done that, I would have had less violence and less trouble as a child because I would have behaved myself better, you know. But from her perspective, she thought like, man, if we send this kid to fighting lessons, it's going to be bad because he's already quick-tempered, and somebody say something or put their hands on him, and he hurts him maybe more than he should. And I had black eyes, and I got smacked around too when I was a kid. So I'm not saying I was such a tough guy, but if somebody put their hands on me, I took that a certain way, and we're going to have some immediate response to that, But anyway, when I started training MMA, I started training with former world champions from the beginning. I just started that recently, like last year.
Right.
And my first my first time training with Jake Shields, he gets me in like a front guillotine choke, and I'm still trying to finagle that a little bit, and I was like, I'll sort this out, and I'm having a hard time breathing, but I'll sort this out. And he really ripped on that, and I'm like, and I thought like, well, this is how you die,
Dude, I've never done, like, these guys always ask me.
My throat hurt every day for 15
Bro,
days.
like, these guys always want, hey, Tate, you're big. I'm like, bro, I play football. They're like, man, you get in there. And I'm like, bro, no, you're not hitting me. Like, I'm not that guy. Like, no, that's not me. But I laugh because, yeah, that's just crazy. Like, every time I tell somebody about the UFC, they really are like, oh my God, it's so violent. And I'm like, these are the nicest people, bro. Like, they're like, it's very rare they don't shake hands afterwards. It's a sport to them, and they're so disciplined in it. And, like, people don't really understand, like, it gets such a bad rep because it's like, oh, it's fighting. And they really feel like these guys are, like, out of control with a bad temper. And I'm like, these guys are not. First of all, it's a fight. You can't be out of control and you can't have a temper. Like, these guys are controlled, you know? It's a sport. So I love that. So whenever I talk to people about MMA, I'm like, man, you would be shocked to just find out how much of a sport and how these guys really are, you know?
You can't be on the high level of anything without having some emotional controls.
100%.
If you can't control your emotions, if you can't make yourself do things when you don't want to,
Right.
if you can't have a longer perspective or a bigger picture in mind of like, well, I don't feel like doing certain things today, but I did set this goal, and I do have a team around me and coaches and trainers and mentors and fans for many of them that like, I can't disappoint these people. I got to go do what I'm supposed to do right now, you know?
Right.
So I think regarding the bigger topic that we've been chatting on, like, you're not going to have what people think of like an overnight success probably took somebody at least 10 years in the background.
Oh.
10 years of fumbling around and working their way up to be at a point where, you're on television or I'm on television or the fighters or these other people that were around or they're doing something significant. It only took me 35 years to be an overnight success, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's documented in several places where people always know that, where it's like you just said, it took me 35 years to be an overnight success. And I really feel like with me, like, one, we have to kind of, what is success? Like, you have some people that have wealth, and that might be success to them. Me, my success is that, bro, I'm just happy. Like, I sleep and I'm happy. I wake up, I'm happy. I'm here talking to you and I'm having a good time. Tomorrow I'm gonna go to a show. I'm gonna pick on Roger and I'm gonna make fun of him and I'm gonna make fun of these guys, but I'm not gonna do it in a malicious way like they don't, think that I don't like them. I'm gonna do it because, like, that's my family and that's what we do.
I'm gonna sit in the front row and watch for the social cues
I'm
and you
gonna
making
come
fun of
sit
somebody.
there and I'm gonna interact with people. That's, to me, is success. Like, I don't need that. So, my thing is like, man, first of all, stop looking at what success is. It's not about jewelry and it's not about the fastest car. Find happiness and be happy. And then once you get there, if you like doing something, like I think Steve Jobs was the one that said it, do something you love because it's gonna get hard. And the only reason it's gonna keep going is because you love it. It's the same thing with with me in trucking. I enjoy it. Like, don't get me wrong, bro. Like, I've had a horrible week with the snow and a lot of breakdowns, but all in all, man, I really enjoy it. I love those chess pieces. I love opening my computer and looking at where these trucks are over America and getting the calls and like, okay, this. And then at the end of the week, you're like, okay, I made X, Y, Z. And it's fun. I love the thrill. It's still exciting for me. And then I jump on a plane, I come out here and I got to work a fight tomorrow. So, like, I have a great life and a great foundation, all that fun, but that's why I can keep doing that. That's what drives me and where I'm at. But it does get hard, and you have to understand, like, anything in life worth having is worth working for. And then, like, my grandfather would tell me, like, you can't pull people up to your level, but they can pull you down to theirs. I will tell you, like, I'm just your normal guy, but I'm also tell you, like, I'm built different. Like, I want the best. I want that. And I'm willing to put in the time to get that. Once I put that thought in my head, once I told Bert I wanted to be a cut man, I annoyed the shit out of him until he was like, and then guys, and again, luck had to help him. A couple guys had to vouch for him and
Not just
stuff.
annoyed them, also did the work in the background.
Again, yeah, like
Let him know that, hey, Bert, I'm doing the thing in the background.
It was like
sure.
a dog, man. If he threw a bone, I would go get it and bring it back to him. Hey, you need to go work 2 shows. And I would go work 2 shows.
But they got to hear that because when they hear, oh, I just got to be persistent and annoy a motherfucker to get what I want.
That's true. So if Bert told me to do something, if Bert gave me the keys that Bert gave me to be a cut man, I followed to the T. I learned how to wrap hands, and then I came and showed him, Bert, look, I can wrap hands. And then I went and worked a small show, and then I came back. He's like, go work 2 more, and I'd go work 2 more. So that was the kind of point where I'm saying, like, you know, when you're being persistent, but you're absolutely right. Like, you can't be persistent and annoy the hell out of somebody. You got to be like, yo, if I tell you, hey, I need you to read 10 books about trucking, bring there and show me that you read the 10 books, and then we can move on to the next part, you know, because I find in society, some people like to get to Z. You know, there's a lot of letters in there before you get to Z. And, you know, and and like you said, you can't circumvent that, man. You have to go through that process. You can't skip A to get to B. You know, you can't skip those. You have to, everything is built on something. So, and that's what I like too, man. You got to learn. You know, mistakes are there to teach you. All right, guess what? I just learned that a couple of my drivers are not draining the air pressure out of the tanks. Well, guess what? When you get to 8 degrees weather, it freezes and it causes the truck to lock up and the brakes to lock up. I didn't know that, and I've been dealing with trucks for 20 years. I mean, I knew to drain the valve, but I thought that my drivers would know that. So now I know, hey, guess what? If the truck brakes are locking up and you're cold, have you been draining the air tank out of there to get the moisture out of there? So I just learned that yesterday. Cost me a lot of money because I had to fix it and all that. But once again, was I frustrated? Hell yeah, I was frustrated at midnight because I had to be up at 4 o'clock to catch a flight to get out here. But I still learned, and now I'm moving forward. And that's what I mean, you know, don't get discouraged, you know, but take those bumps. And then, again, man, like, kind of live in that moment. Like, oh, I just learned something. I just learned something that I didn't know about trucking. So next year, when the winter comes, I learned something, you know.
Let's wrap up or summarize a couple of these thoughts. Like, I think you and I both agree a lot that you got to be a lifetime learner. That you stop learning, like your results are going to be very limited after that point if you're not learning new things and making progress.
100%.
I think we both agree about that. About, you know, the work ethic thing. You mentioned Kamaru recently, or earlier today. You mentioned Kamaru Usman, and Kamaru was here with me about a week and a half ago. We sat down together, and a great man. You know, Kamaru is 6-time champion at the moment. He's current champion. 6-time champion.
Dude's amazing.
A lot of people say is, you know, the best pound per pound fighter in the whole organization right now, and, you know, of all professional fighters.
Right.
And a really nice guy. You know, we spent a couple hours together.
Very humble.
He's texted me last week as well, and, you know, really nice man. And,
I hope he gets that Canelo fight because I think he's gonna do something. I'm not saying he's gonna beat him, but I'm just saying, like, I like that guy because Usman's the kind of guy that will put in the work and put in the time and do what needs to be done to be successful. And that's what I like about him, you know.
And he and I talked about that you know, he was saying that when he was back in college wrestling, that, you know, he kind of had a spotty record starting off. And he's, you know, telling his coach, he's like, man, I do all the things the other guys are doing. And, you know, I do everything the team suggests I do. I never miss practice. I do all the stuff. But, you know, I'm not winning all my fights like I feel like I could in my heart. And he said, I believe it was a coach pointed out to him, and I don't want to misspeak, but someone pointed out to him, he's like, well, if you're doing all the things that the other wrestlers are doing, how do you think you would have a better outcome than them?
That's
You're going to have to do significantly more.
Right.
And he said that changed his behaviors a lot because, you know, he wasn't, when other people on the wrestling team, they're supposed to be cutting weight, but they're having a drink on the weekend, things like that, he's like, nah, I'm not drinking, I'm not doing any of this normal people shit. I'm going to do the absolute best. Those little incremental things that are emotionally painful in the short term. You know, most people would call that a sacrifice. I tend to call that an investment. That, like,
100%.
if you're making a calculated decision that, like, I'm going to forego this little bit of happiness now so I could have a better future and take care of myself and my people and my loved ones, I'd call that an investment, but most
100%.
people call that a sacrifice. But yeah, I mean, that's the type of work. If you want to have exceptional outcomes, you're going to have to engage in exceptional behaviors.
Yes.
It's ridiculous to think that you're going to have, you know, you're going to be the guy that's trusted by world champions to take care of them at the most crucial moments in their career. Some of the most crucial moments, they're about to go out there and fight in 5 rounds on pay-per-view for, you know, sometimes millions of dollars, and you're in charge of taking care of them and giving them some comfort. Like, why would they put somebody? How could they take some fucking dodo off the street and put them in that spot? It's absurd. Think how crazy that is. You know?
I never looked at it that way, and I appreciate the compliment. Thank you. Now I'm more nervous.
Well, it's
now.
true.
But no, I mean.
No, but you earned that spot.
True. Thank you. Yeah. Again.
I could figure out some elements of what you do, but it'd be ridiculous for me to go. I wouldn't, if you said, hey, man, you want to go wrap up Kamaru's hands for his next fight, I'd be like, man, there's probably somebody more qualified to do that.
That's
I
true.
could figure it out. I'd probably do an okay job, but I couldn't do what you do, and I wouldn't know all the nuances in detail.
That was actually the hardest part of breaking into being a cut man, is getting the fighters to trust you. You have to get the fighters to sit down and put their hands up there and know, all right, and that honestly makes it hard for a lot of people. They don't have that, they just don't have that thing, that the fighters are like, all right, my thing honestly was Bert. Bert was like, this guy's good, but you still got to go and walk through there and do that. You still got to knock it out the park. You still got to, Bert gave me the opportunity to wrap the guy's hand, but what I did was the reason why the guy came back and said, hey, can this guy wrap my hands again? So.
Hey, man, you got to earn your spot. There's
Right.
some things in the world, there's some type of people that could look them in the eye and say with 100% certainty, there's nobody in the world that could help you with your business better than me.
Right.
There's nobody in the world that could help you understand. Not everybody, because not everybody's serious.
Right.
But there's an archetype of person that's doing well already, but they know they're not living up to their potential. They're probably doing above average, but they're frustrated. They know they could do a lot better.
Right.
And for that type of person, like, I'm probably the best person in the world that could help them. Depends on their personality, depends on their goals.
Nice.
But if they want to do good in real estate, they want to do good in the stock market, they want to learn about entrepreneurship, there's a lot of people like that could look them in their eyes and say, like, there's nobody that could help you more than me. But I earned that spot. It only took me 35 years.
Yeah.
And the same way that, like, if I was offered, hey, man, you want to wrap Kamaru's hands for his next fight, I'd be like, I'm probably not the best person for that. I wouldn't want to be in that position out of respect for him and other professionals like yourself. Like, I'm not the best person to take that job, man.
I know
you earned that spot.
I know we're wrapping up, but let me ask you this question. How do you feel about people actually being man enough or woman enough to say, hey, like, I'm not the person for that right now. Like, give me some time, but.
I'm not a tennis coach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the best person to be. I don't give a shit about tennis. I'm no
Okay.
good at it.
Right.
I wouldn't be the best person to be your tennis coach. You wouldn't want me to be your heart surgeon. It's going to be bad. It's going to end bad, and I don't want that responsibility knowing that you died. Literally with blood on my hands. I don't want that responsibility.
Right.
So, and I don't pretend to be good at things I'm not. And I get, you're that type of person that, like, there's a few things you're really great at. I think you're too humble, honestly. I do. Not sincerely, I get the impression you say a couple of times, like, man, I'm just a normal guy. Now, you might have been born a normal guy, but you did some exceptional things, and you earned a abnormally good spot in your life, and you earned, some unique life experiences and in entrepreneurship, and in your UFC endeavors that you're not a normal man, and you earned a spot that I admire. That I see you on TV and I see you at the fights, and I'm like, oh, Tate, you're serious. Like, I get the impression. I know a couple of the other cut guys. Like,
Right.
if you talk to them, like, they know me, they say hi to me.
Yes, sir.
But I had the impression, like, if I was in the ring, I'd be like, man, I think I'd like Tate to fucking
I appreciate
come
that.
smash that metal paddle
I
on my
appreciate
face,
that. I
which must be
appreciate that.
painful.
Yes, it is.
Come
yeah.
smash that metal paddle and help the swelling go down and put some fucking Vaseline on my gashed open eye.
Yeah,
I
man.
thought you'd be the man that I'd love to help with.
Man, and that's the thing too, man. I appreciate hearing that from you, and that's ultimately what you want. You want your peers, and you want people to like, hey, I appreciate this guy, and like T.J. Dillashaw thanked me this last fight for his last fight, and that was a great feeling. Like, he said, man, I really appreciate you, and like for him to notice that and even appreciate that work, like, it's very appreciative. Like, we all love to be appreciated, and we don't do it to be appreciated, but when it happens, man, and it's genuine, it's a great feeling.
You talked several times about mentors today, that you had your mentors and your endeavors and guys that you looked up to that taught you some shit and give you a hard time on occasion as well, it
Right.
sounds like. Could you be doing what you're doing if you didn't have those mentors or that guidance along the way? I couldn't have done the shit I did without
I'll be honest
having
with you,
people
yes and no. I'm stubborn enough to still do it, but I still needed those guys. So like your Don Houses and your Rudies and my grandfather, like my grandfather especially, like, man, I think I would have gotten to where I'm at, but it would have just taken a long time. I'd have been 60.
Would you be doing it at a strip club in Albuquerque, or would you be doing it at the UFC Apex Center?
No, I wouldn't be there. Like I said, it'd taken me some time. So I definitely want that too. And I mean, we don't talk about that. Like, man, find mentors. Find someone that is doing something that you want to do and pick their brain. But you got to understand too, when you do that, you can't be full of shit. Like, because people don't understand, like, time, You know, like my grandfather would tell me, you can take my money, you can take my possessions, just don't waste my time. When you waste my time, you're killing me slowly. So that's something that I would encourage. I would definitely encourage mentorship. Find you someone that, you know, hell, reach out to me, but just realize when you do, man, like, my time is very limited. So when I give it to you, don't waste it, you know, and I'm sure you're the same way, but definitely find you someone. You know, I like to read. Maybe you don't like to read. Find you somebody, bond with them, that have them take time and value their time and value what they're giving you. Because that lesson that they're giving you, it was bought and paid for by time and sweat by them, you know?
I had the worst mentors as a child, which is still a mentor. You still learn some things. Like you learn, you know, I learned some things in my childhood environment and be like, I don't think I'm gonna use heroin. That don't look like a good path in life, you know? So I had some mentors like that where you look around and be like, man, that's a disaster. I don't want to do that shit. But I didn't have like I didn't have any positive mentors for some years in my childhood. And as an adult, I've really lived this way, and I put my behavior and my money where my mouth is. That like anything new that I want to learn from the best people in the world doing that.
100%.
And you know, you got to earn your spot to be around those people. You can't be around those people. Money is not enough. Money doesn't buy access to those people. Money is not enough. Like they got to see that you're showing up, that you're putting in the work, that you're training by yourself, that you're the real thing, and you're going to be somebody. You're going to do. It's a good use of their time to invest in you. There's going to be some warmth in that relationship.
100%.
So.
My grandfather used to tell me, you can learn from anybody. And he meant that. You know, you could learn. He was one of the big reasons that like keep me humble, because he was like, you can learn from a bum. You know, and my grandfather would always tell me, whether you're teaching or you're not teaching, you're still teaching. And that kind of, that stuck with me. So, man, I love, like I told you, when I'm at the cage, I love meeting people. I love it because I want to know, and like, you know something that I don't know, and hey, I'm from here, and man, what are you doing? Like, I love people, and I love learning. My grandfather was very adamant about that, you know, learning from people, being humble, opening yourself up. So that's why, like, I'll tell you, like, even you said you didn't have mentors, like, you did, you know, people that showed you wrong shit was like that
was very valuable.
You know, like, don't go down this path, you know, like, you know, which is kind of crazy. Like, you'll always see a parent that'll be like, don't drink a beer. You know, I think I read it somewhere where there was two sons, and you probably heard it, where one guy was like, I drink a six-pack every day, and they're like, why? He's like, well, I watched my dad do it. And then the one son was like, I don't drink any alcohol. He's like, why? Well, I watched my dad do it. So it's all about your choices and how you take that lesson and what you do and how you apply it.
My grandfather was like a traditional European type guy, you know, is an Italian guy. And he'd give me, you know, I was 4 or 5 years old, and, you know, he'd give me like half a beer. And, you know, like at dinner time or something, like, if I wanted it. If he drank a beer, he'd ask me, you know, you want to, he'd pour me, you know, 6 ounces of beer or something. Today they'd call that child abuse or something crazy, you know. But, you know, when I turned, through my teenage years, I drank, but I never got carried away with it so much. Just a couple times I got drunk, because like the first time you drink whiskey and you had 11 shots, and then you realize like, oh, I should never do that ever again in my life, you know. So I had a couple of those moments, but, you know, I had friends that, you know, their family was really strict, and then when they start drinking, it was crazy, you know, this crazy shit happened in their lives that you don't want to hear about and I don't want to talk about.
That's me. That's why I don't drink. I don't drink for that reason. I come from a line, my family are alcoholics, and a few times that I've drank, shit just went out of control with me, so I just don't drink. But again, these lessons, man, store-bought sense.
Last question I got to ask you. You've been around countless champions, more than dozens. You must have been around, you know, more than 100 champions, couple hundred champions. And you ever see somebody with that championship belt around their waist, or somebody that was extraordinarily successful in any area that didn't have a good coach or good mentor, or somebody that helped them on that path?
No, I can't think of. I'll take it one step further. I've never been around a champion that didn't have a great team environment. So, not to say it takes a village, but if you're watching this, protect your circle, keep your circle small, and keep your circle, you know what I'm saying? Like LeBron James. This guy's worth $1 billion, but look at his circle. Look at his group of people. So to be successful, you know, I wouldn't be where I'm at by myself. So I'm not going to pretend like I'm the greatest and I did it on my own. It takes people. So dedicate that time, do your research, find out who you want to be a mentor. Find out who you want in your corner. You know, do you want that friend that, and I like to say this, and I'll tell Rashad, and Rashad will tell you this, being a friend is hard as hell. Because being a friend is the person that says you don't need to drink. Being a friend is that person that says, hey, your breath stinks. Hey, you shouldn't wear that, you look fat. Hey, you're kind of being an asshole. Hey, you're being obnoxious. That is being a friend. Being a friend is not the, hey, fuck it, man, you only had 10 beers. Oh, bro, I've seen you drive worse. I've seen you drive more hammered. That's not your friend.
Yeah.
You know, like I said again, man, I grew up, I'm a Texas boy, so all the sayings, you know. My grandfather would say, too, is everyone that gets you out of shit is not your friend, and people that shit on you is not your enemy, you know. And put some thought into that, you know. Being a friend of you might mean I might tell you, hey, bro, you don't need to do that. Like, bro, you don't need to do coke. You don't need to do that drug. That sucks because now, man, you got an altercation where we're fighting, man, fuck you, all your boy. Like, and that's happened, bro. Like, seriously, you know.
I had this with my friends in childhood, yeah.
You know, bro, oh, you think you're better than me? No, bro, like, dumbass, I'm trying to stop you from doing something that's gonna go down. You know, again, like, bro, every time you watch SportsCenter and you see an athlete fall from grace to do something fucking boneheaded, what's the first thing they say? What was his friends, or who's around them, or how are they letting this happen? So I say that with you, yes, get mentors, but also, man, be very, very peculiar in who you have around you. You know, like, shit, do you want the guy that you can have $1 million on thing and he'll ask you for money or before he takes it, or you want the guy that kind of like, oh, I'm around for the money, the dope, the girls, and all that, the spotlight.
I have this mastermind group in my business. I don't talk about it much. I just put the sign in the background because I like to see my likeness on a gold coin.
Okay.
I grew up poor, so it means something special to me. But, you know, after they go through 3 mentoring courses with me, you know, the people that I like the most, that I believe that they did the work, that I believe that they're going to go be somebody. They're on the path and they're dedicated. Some of them are already multimillionaires. Some of them are, you know, we had a kid that's like 19 years old from, you know, just a young kid, but it's clear to me he's going to go make, you know, $1 million+ in his life. If you met him, you spent time, you see that. You'd be like, well, he's 19 and he still does some dumb ass shit, but
right.
He's certainly on his way. But people pay $20,000 to join that group. It's invite only. I invite them once. If they're not excited, if they don't figure it out, you know, like if they're not excited to join, they won't get a second invitation.
Right.
They got to think about it. It's like, no worries. Like, there's no pressure at all, but we ask them one time, like, we think you'd be well qualified for this group, and this is why, and, you know, is that a priority for you? And, you know, I mean, almost everybody says yes, but the 3, 4, or 5 times, oh, I got to think about it. It's like, oh, my mistake, you know, my mistake. So I'll do it later. No.
Right.
But that's the point of that group. That's for current and future millionaires, and I, you know, it's literally the group that I wish I had when I was younger. When I was hanging around with a bunch of, you know, 100-aires or 1,000-aires, how are you going to be making, you know, the best financial decisions? How are you going to be having like real wealth or financial abundance in your life if you're hanging out with a bunch of 100-aires?
100%.
It can't be that way, man. I got to hang out with other entrepreneurs, other investors, and
you got to be able to be uncomfortable. You got to be able to go in a room that you can be uncomfortable in, and not to the point where you're uncomfortable where you want, but being uncomfortable is a good thing because it means like you're either going to move, you're going to do something to not be, to kind of get comfortable, you know, and you don't ever want to be comfortable. And if you look at the greats, like, you know, Tiger Woods won a PGA Tour and then he changed his swing. Michael Jordan, you know, fighters, you like, why did this guy leave a camp? Because he got complacent. He was like, I'm the alpha here. So what you're saying is exactly right, man. You want to get, you know, and that's true statement too. Like, people are gonna pull you, you know, like if I'm around a bunch of millionaires, and guess what? Eventually something's gotta happen. I mean, unless you're a complete idiot and you're not listening to what these people say, you know, but yeah, hang around those people that you want to be like, you know, if you know, and then again, if you want to be the idiot that's out drinking and partying and doing drugs, you know, that's an easy group to find too. And they, you know, like, what's the saying? Show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. So that's true.
Success is not for everybody, may or may not be for you. You have to make that decision for yourself. But Mr. Tate, thank you for spending the time.
Brother, I appreciate it.
I feel like
Thank
I
you
got
so
a new
much.
friend.
Thank
and,
you. Yes.
I look forward to
cannot
chatting
wait.
with you more and spending more time
Dude,
together.
when you come to the next show, get there, let me know so I can come out and I want to wrap your hand so you can actually see how we do it in MMA versus
I'll be in the
boxing.
audience with.
Don't punch anybody.
I won't.
I was living on my coach's living room on a mattress. I ended up like just bouncing at a bar. I'd been a cop. I quit my job. And
Derek Moneyberg presents 10 Commandments of Wealth.
took the gamble on myself to become a successful professional fighter and make it to the UFC or Pride. And at the time,
Am I making a sacrifice right now, or am I just investing in a better future? So it's easier for me to make those decisions when I think about it as like, oh,
yeah, absolutely. And now that you mention it, having to actually really process and think about it, I think that word sacrifice is kind of like, I believe it's the word that the ones at the top kind of use to make everyone else feel better about it. Because when you're at the top, now you realize that was an investment.
Was everything just golden and easy and handed to you, or do you have a little struggle yourself along the way?
No. Yeah, in 2013 and 2015, I was living out of my car, full time, and I was too proud to ask for help. Like, how ridiculous is that? You're living out of your car and you think you know it all. And 2015, that's when I kind of I knew that I didn't know it all. So why not find experts in that and really shortcut that? I thought I was going to just chip away. I thought I was just going to read books till I was an expert. I never really talked to anyone that actually did it.
It's been about a week since I've joined the 10 Commandments of Wealth program, and there's so many interviews that are offered in this program.
I'm inside the Derek Moneyberg 10 Commandments of Wealth program. This is an awesome program that you're gonna love. I'm gonna use the principles and the knowledge from this program to help me boost my leads in my marketing firm. Buy this program, it's a wonderful investment for your future. You won't regret it and you'll absolutely love it.